Hello, everybody. EJ Schultz here, news editor at Ad Age. Thanks for joining us today for our latest episode of Purpose Marketing Hits and Misses. Joining me is our regular guest, Thomas Kolster, who is the founder and creative director of Copenhagen-based Goodvertising Agency, which advises companies, organizations on how to turn environmental, societal, and health risks into market opportunities. Welcome back, Thomas.
So good to see you, EJ.
So thanks again for everyone who's tuned in. Just a reminder of how we go about this. We're going to review 6 ads, and we're going to encourage everyone watching to comment, submit questions, while Thomas gives his opinion on each ad, and he will reveal whether he thinks it is a hit or a miss and why. So the more audience questions and comments we get, the better this is. So please don't be shy. And with that out of the way, let's get started. Our first campaign comes from Tourism Tasmania, which continues its long-running Come Down for Air campaign to promote the unique attributes of the Australian state. Let's watch a couple of the ads and then we'll talk about them.
These rogues don't have a care in the world, nor do they have a towel. Lunch. Sourced minutes ago. By Tom, your friendly fisherman, chef, and waiter.
All right, Thomas, this certainly is probably not the first tourism ad we've reviewed on this show, but why did you pick this one?
Definitely not. It kind of feels strange when sitting in a sweater today. I do feel like most ads kind of feel like a little bit like a 30-second prison sentence, to be honest. But I think these, they just feel like a free 30-second therapy session. And in a time where so many brands talk about digital detox, I think what these ads does really well is consistently delivering this message by just showing it to us. I feel it when I watch the ad, and that's what I absolutely love about it. It's not over explaining anything.
It's could I say that it's a little reminiscent here in the US of the hugely successful Pure Michigan campaign? Are you familiar with that one? I know you're overseas, but it's a similar vibe, maybe.
I would say that it's not a trick that's completely unused before, but I think what kind of works with this is the simplicity. Remember, we had the add-on from WWF, Nature as a Prescription, sort of giving you that sort of quietness and time for contemplation. I think works. Probably also works for Michigan. I think a lot of destinations around the world, but I think it's quite nice and it's short. And it gives you a feeling, and I think that's what we need. So it's on purpose, and I say that without having been in Tasmania. So there you go.
Okay, yeah, I think you've been just about everywhere else, so that's on your bucket list, maybe.
Please invite me. Yeah, seems like nobody's disagreeing. Maybe there isn't anybody from Australia tuning in today. Maybe the time difference.
Let us know if you agree with us. On to our next one, though. It comes from Nike. And it is the latest iteration of its classic Just Do It campaign. But this one reframes that tagline to ask, why do it? Let's watch the lead spot from Wyden and Kennedy, which is narrated by Tyler, the Creator.
Why do it? Why would you make it harder on yourself? Why chance it? Why put it on the line? With so much at stake, with so much room to fail, why risk it? Why would you dare? Seriously, why? You could give everything you have and still lose. But my question is, what if you don't?
All right, this one has all the Nike feels, but how did it make you feel, Thomas?
It kind of felt for me a little bit like a record on repeat. And I'm only saying this, Nike is about perfection. I think this is good, not great. There's a lot of things they get right. It is on purpose. It is consistent with what Nike has been doing. But I think as Nike is faced with sort of sales not doing as well as they should be doing, I mean, they could be asking themselves, why not risk a little bit more? If you compare it to another brand that usually delivers sort of high impact creative, such as Dove, I think they are better at constantly sort of pushing the envelope in terms of where they can take that platform. I feel Nike, it feels a little bit stuck, and that's worrying for me, especially with the market conditions that Nike is facing right now.
Well, let me give you the Nike perspective on this one. We interviewed their CMO, Nicole Graham, who said the creative was meant to capture the conundrum facing younger generations. She said, I have 2 teenage daughters, and you can see this generation is growing up in a pressure cooker. It's constant comparison and perfectionism, and this whole idea of fear of trying and fear of failure, so much so that there are cultural words for it. You don't want to be a try hard. You don't want to be considered cringe, which is when you're showing passion for something. We were seeing all of this going on in culture, and we thought this is interesting. So that is sort of the incremental change that they went after. Does that make you feel any different about this or no?
I think it's actually spot on to what I said. I feel what Nike was doing back in the days, they were leading culture. I think now they're mirroring culture. And I think that's the difference between being a bold brand and just being a brand that mirrors society. And again, I hold them to a very high standard because the creative is usually great. And I think especially at this time for Nike as a brand, I think it's just so pivotal that they come up with something that shows them why I should buy into these guys rather than on running or someone else. But, I'm still curious to see what anybody else feels about this. It's got to be some people that are younger than me where this ad talks to them.
Yeah, if you're out there and want to defend Nike, please feel free to weigh in or have any questions or want to challenge Thomas on any of this. He's accepting all criticism. Let's move on, though. An ad for the Indian whiskey brand 100 Pipers, which we think promotes its line of travel gear with this next ad by featuring an actor, social entrepreneur, and conservationist. And it continues the brand's Be Remembered for Good platform. Let's take a look.
What's the world's most rewarding job? It's where off-site conferences boost more than just morale, where happiness index precedes profit index, and where bonuses are given more than once. Some things you do for a good life, some for the greater good. 100 Pipers. Be remembered for good.
So you can see in that last image that it says 100 Pipers travel gear, which apparently this ad is promoting in some way. But what was your takeaway from this?
I mean, I'm happy that, first of all, that you have a brand in these sort of challenging times is supporting people who stand up for change, and some really important people that are being mentioned in the ad. My challenge, though, is it doesn't really come off as very authentic. And it tends to be that after watching this ad, I kind of remember the people driving the chains, all those great people, but I kind of forget the good whiskey. And I think that's a bit of a challenge. So, good to be remembering these folks, but shouldn't we be remembering the whiskey? So I think it's the thing we talked about before as well, is how well integrated is the brand into the creative. And I think that's what sort of makes it a purpose miss in this case.
We have Maria weighing in and saying, "Oh my God, this is so average." Which my complaint on this ad is, again, it's like, what is the product here? Like, because it did say travel gear, and we assume that they're selling sort of branded, I don't know, something to do with travel. but there's none of that in the ad. I did some quick searching.
You're in tough category. I mean, I just can't, like, we're talking purpose, right? If you think back at some of the good old creative from Johnny Walker, Keep Walking, I mean, you feel the purpose, you feel the sense of duty and stuff like that. I think here it's just quite a classic thing. Let's bring in a mix of creators, famous people, and let's hope we get away with it. Let's find some cool brand ambassadors, but I think it lacks that level of authenticity. And yeah, I agree with Maria. Maybe the creative is also a bit average.
All right. Next up is a campaign for a Danish brand called Birdie, which makes indoor air monitors that actually can measure the CO2 in the air. I think we can throw up on the screen and sort of what this actual product looks like before we show the ad, because it's better seen than explained. So that little birdie, you hang this on your wall, and if it detects CO2 in the or toxins in the air, it will go down like that. Cool little design, interesting device. Let's pivot now into how one of the campaigns for this thing, which is a lengthy ad that we don't have time to play with audio, so we'll just kind of start it up in the background. But it basically is a black and white film that's depicting sort of the origins, or slightly fictional origins maybe, of the old school tactic of using canaries to detect toxic air in coal mines. If you were to watch this full video, which you can easily find on your own by searching for the brand name, it's sort of this father and son cast, and they end up in a coal mine, and you can sort of guess what happens next. He brings the canary, it warns them, they get out safely. And I think they actually premiered this film at some sort of event at a new showroom opening that Birdie was doing. So that's the description of this. What is your take?
I mean, I first off, I love the product. I remember years ago judging it at a D&AD Impact Award in the sort of emerging tech category, and so it's just so great to see what they've done with it. I mean, I think we've all been there, right? We've been sitting in a stuffy room at some point and feel the oxygen levels are dropping, and that's basically what this little gadget does. What I love about this ad is that it's not really pointing fingers. It's just reminding of a sort of common sense. And sometimes for like a small little challenger brand to take on such an ambitious project, that kind of reminds me a little bit of, if Birdie met Stella Artois, and also just taking the time to tell longer formats. I think I think we're so obsessed with short formats these days. So it almost, in my mind, makes the product more valuable that you take the time to tell this very, very long story. And I also do like that there's no finger pointing around this. It's not saying to you, do this or that. You sort of tell a common sense sort of, whether this is a true story or not, it kind of have this olden days to it, which I love about it. It feels authentic.
Yeah, if you I looked into this a little bit, and you can see the brand on Facebook and social media. Just sort of, I think one comment they made was, in this age of short attention spans, we decided to make a 6-minute film. That's another discussion, but they were also, I think this was done pretty economically, because I don't think there was a creative agency involved. At least I couldn't find one. It was, they hired a director, they did this. I think it was done pretty efficiently. I presume there's other marketing out there on this brand that is more product focused, which I think it needs, because it is a cool little design. So this was just sort of probably a supplementary kind of piece of creative, right, that they used.
Yeah, it's so interesting, right? Because you would normally like see this from much bigger brands, and for small brands to do something like this, I think it's quite interesting. And again, I mean, obviously it's a bit hard for people viewing this here today, but go and check out the 6-minute film. It's worth it. And yeah, long format, short format, I think it's all about the message, and I think they have a meaningful message here to say, and they definitely have an amazingly designed product to live up to that.
Are you seeing more, just off topic slightly for a second, detouring, are you seeing more long format stuff right now? Or is there sort of a counter trend happening to the assumption that people only want to watch 6 seconds worth of stuff?
It's going to be interesting to see with all this AI stuff just flooding everything, right? So I do actually see that there are more longer format stuff, and probably also just because it's easier to produce than it was before, and more economically to produce. Whether it's more successful or not, I have no clue. I think in the podcast world, I do see a lot of successful podcasts at the moment where people can get away with talking for an hour on end. I think EJ, we're probably not there. Like, we probably still have to stick with 20 minutes, I guess.
Speaking of that, we should move along.
Yeah.
So our next campaign supports a rebranding of the Ronald McDonald House, which is, of course, the McDonald's-backed charity that provides housing and care for families with hospitalized children. And it is, as part of this effort, it's pledging to double the number of families served in the next 5 years. And this is one piece of creative they're using to promote this. Let's take a look.
Yeah. This time try.
This is a journey no family ever expects to take.
Yes, look.
I know because my family has been where you are now. We all asked ourselves the same question.
Yeah, that's good.
Why us? I wish I could give you the answer.
Are we nearly there yet?
In our hardest moments, we found there was a whole community of support waiting for us, where we were strengthened by other families to keep going.
Okay.
You're very brave. Just remember that.
Okay.
Holding each other for the bad news and the good. So please, let this house remind you how loved you are, how seen you are, and how strong you are. With all our love, from one Ronald McDonald House family who stayed to another.
So this ad, obviously, it plays into the tradition of, families who are departing Ronald McDonald House, writing letters to families that might be coming in. What is your perspective on this one?
I think they get a lot right here. I mean, it's on purpose. They tell a very, very powerful personal story, and I think it's sort of consistent with what they've done historically. But what sort of bothers me still, though, is that somehow I kind of feel that it ends up being a story too much about the house, and even that little scene with the welcoming staff and the reception, rather than actually focusing probably more on that enablement. And so I might be getting this wrong, but that's sort of kind of how I feel this piece of creative leaves me. And so, yeah, I would have loved that, it focused more on the amazing role that they're playing rather than too much of a rebrand of the house, which I kind of feel just doesn't really fit this category. I mean, they rely so much on you and I donating to this super important cause. So to be honest, I don't care too much about the house. I want to see more about the important work. Somehow I feel it missed here, but it might just be me.
Does anyone out there disagree? Feel free to let us know. We might come back to that one if we get some more comments on it, but let's move along to our final ad of the day, which is in the AI category. A lot of folks out there have probably seen this work. It's an ad for Anthropic's AI assistant, Claude, and in the company's first big marketing effort, it frames AI as a thinking partner. Let's watch the ad from Mother.
There's never been a worse time.
Problem.
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 There's never been a worse time. There's never been a worse time.
There's never been a better time. A better time to have a problem. To be stuck. To be overwhelmed. To be impatient. To be out of ideas or out of your depth. Out of breath. There's never been a better time to have a medical condition. Just look at the research being done. To have no qualifications, no resources. To not understand, feel insignificant. To feel restless. Right now, there really has never been a better time.
So before I get your take, Thomas, I want to read a quote from we wrote about this at Ad Age. Andrew Stirk, who is the head of brand marketing at Anthropic, said, "Claude is for those who see AI not as a shortcut, but as a thinking partner to take on their most meaningful challenges." Did this work for you?
Wow. I mean, this one I'm really curious about what everybody else thinks about. Putting humans at the driver's seat is, I think, what they're trying to do here. For me, I mean, there's been a lot of talk about greenwashing or whitewashing. I think this is definitely the category of check washing. In a lot of these types of work where we know there is problems, there is challenges, and the brand avoiding talking about those challenges, I think that's problematic. It's kind of like a casino saying, come in here and solve your financial problems. So I get it. It's a tool. I just don't think it's a very authentic way of telling it. I think they could have talked about some of the challenges around AI as well. And then I might have bought into this ad as AI for problem solvers. But just ignoring this bulk of conversation that's out there, that's on everybody's mind, is really not going to help you make this pitch to me as an AI company, unfortunately. So, we talked about the other day with Meta and Facebook as well. Just can't ignore what is on everybody's mind when they're watching a piece of work like this. And I think that's the challenge.
Well, let me push back on you on that for a second. Don't you think there's enough written constantly about, I'm assuming you're referring to the sustainability, environmental downside of AI and stuff like that. There's enough out there on that. Isn't it the brand's job to talk about what it can do for humanity rather than, or how would you do it if you were them? Obviously, you're paid to promote the product.
For me, it's not so much about the sustainability part. It's as much as, what is the role of AI? Is it taking away jobs? I mean, we're in an industry that is it's all about the people. And a lot of people in our industry is feeling that jobs are being let go, the same at consultancies and other things. So it's as much that thing to come out and have the tenacity to say, yeah, humans are the drivers of this. Mm-hmm. Probably. I think the way they could have gotten away with it was just create one scene where AI could be the problem as well. And that would have made it authentic. I think when you ignore the issues at hand, then it just seems a bit too blue-eyed for me to swallow the argument.
And this one, of course, came basically around the same time ChatGPT came out with this brand new campaign, which is also, it's much different tone, but it's kind of the same spirit, which is like putting the humans out front. And theirs is I don't want to say lighthearted, but it's a little more less dense. It's about basically people using ChatGPT to design a workout, and then it showed, like, one ad is showing a guy doing like pull-ups, and another one I think is around recipes and things like that. Did that one is that one any better in your view, or about the same, or?
No, 100% in some ways, because it's much more humble. I mean, you're not trying to take on the world's biggest problems, because let's be honest, AI will and is a massive problem as well in our society today in terms of all the things we talked about just now. So I think just being a little bit more down to earth kind of helped ChatGPT in that way. you're not helping solve the world's problems. You might just be helping with that exercise routine that I can't remember, or a recipe. I want to cook Mexican. Fine. So I think in that way, they're just much more focused. I think sometimes when you do these big mission type pieces, like we saw with the Nike one, you better make sure that it rings true and that it's on purpose. And I think when you don't dare to face the music and the challenges and the things that's in people's minds, I think this is where it becomes a little bit disingenuous.
I want to read one comment we had come in on this one from Kathy. What caught me, there it is, you can read it. What caught me on this more than anything was the use of MF Doom. That's what made me pay attention to that ad, which was beautiful and had a great message of human first. So someone that disagrees with you a little bit, I think, Thomas, there.
That's always good, Kathy. And, to be honest, I think obviously they are aware of a lot of the criticism going around. And I think that's also what ChatGPT did, right? They said, okay, this is made by this is not made by AI. This is made by traditional advertising people. And I think this is a way to sort of meet that criticism. But for me, it just becomes much more authentic when you don't ignore that in campaigns, but you actually address it. For me, that's just much better.
We have a little bit of time left. We'll go back, and we're getting some other comments coming in on some of the previous stuff we talked about. This one had to do with the Ronald McDonald House campaign. This comes from Melissa. She says, when an ad makes me tear up, it's making an impact. Jennifer said, context and perspective. If you have needed to stay in a Ronald McDonald House, it's about the connections, people in the house walking the same journey as you. And then Nathan said regarding Ronald McDonald House, again, support was the takeaway. Potent emotional. It's firing in your chest. The association with the brand package becomes the message. You're not alone. We're here to help. So a lot of those people, I think, are taking a different view than you, that they said it actually did its job.
I completely agree with the emotional part of it. And, emotionality equates with effectivity, right? And so in that sense, yes, you could say it comes out as effective. I think the pushback that I had was just that I felt it became too much about the house, as I said, and too little about but again, I'm always welcome to hear different points of view. I always kind of felt like it was too emotional. Maybe I kind of also had that, it's a tough ad to watch.
Before we go, I want to read one more just sort of general comment from Michelle. It says, purpose marketing only works when it's backed by proof of impact. The best campaigns don't just say purpose, they structure it into the measurable outcomes that outlast the creative cycle. When brands align purpose with accountability, they stop chasing headlines and start compounding trust. It sounds like she's speaking your language, Thomas. Is that right? Do you agree?
I think there's always this hard thing about what is the brand saying and what is the brand in fact doing. And I think especially this speaks truth to when we discussed the Claude ad. So you could, of course, ask a company like that. So if you really do believe that humans are the problem solvers, how are you going to address that in your company? How are you going to address that in your philanthropic efforts? Are you supporting human problem solvers out there, and how? So yes, one thing is what you say, but you need to back that up with proof. So I very much agree with that.
All right, that's a great place to leave it today then. Thanks again, everyone, for tuning in. We can continue this dialogue on LinkedIn, and we can kind of go back and forth there. So let's not end the discussion just because we're ending the video. That was, again, Thomas Kolster of Good Advertising Agency. I'm EJ Schultz, news editor at Ad Age. I want to give a shout out to our producer, Lauren Ciardio, and remind everyone we'll post a recap of this episode at adage.com. You can take a look at all of the ads again, especially the 6-minute ad we didn't have time to play. And we look forward to seeing you again for our next episode. Thanks again, everyone.